BA subject psychology first semester session number 8. The topic is under depth perception, monocular and binocular cues. See, binocular depth perception is one of the way that we perceive the depth is through binocular depth cues. The term binocular means is a two-eyed. Like binocular depth cues rely on information from both your eyes. Specifically, is a information based on our retinal disparatory, and retinal disparatory refers to that fact that each of our eye sees slightly different views of the world because of our eyes are set a few centimeters apart. See here to check the disparity that occurs, say look across the room and carefully note how your view changes as you close the first your right eyes and then left, and notice that the view changes most for objects that are close to you and less for objects that are distant. In a short amount of retinal disparity, we experience is a functions to the distance from which we view an object. Our brain uses the amount of retinal disparity we experience to calculate how far the object for us. In this manner, we perceive depth in the world. See, monocular cues is a binocular disparity is an important depth cue, but it is not only one way we perceive the depth. If we were, we would see in serious trouble. If we lost the use of one our eyes, we also would not be able to perceive depth in painting or photographs. Luckily, we have another means of depth perception that requires the use only one eye is a monocular depth cue. See, many of you may have learned about the monocular depth cues when you have begun to drawing and painting as a child. You probably did not realize that you were learning about perception, but you were a painter is faced with the challenges of representing the three-dimensional world and a two-dimensional canvas. A canvas has no depth. All parts of the painting are the same distance from the viewer eyes. In a retinal disparatory cannot give the viewer the perception of the depth in the flat painting. So, how do we perceive depth in paintings and photographs? Monocular depth cues are interposition, more distant object on partially hidden by closer object, height on the horizon, more distant object are placed higher on the horizon than closer object, relative size and more distance and objects are seen as smaller than closer object of the same size, texture gradient and more distance object have a less texture of the detail than closer objects. The aerial perspective, the more distant object has a azure and a blazes closer object. Linear perspective on converging lines and indicate that the distance of them. Motions parallax, more distance appear to move more slowly than closer object as we passed by them. So these are the reference we refer for present sessions. That is Robert S. Feldman, Understanding Psychology, and Atkinson, An Introduction to Psychology.